Hello everyone and welcome to another video of the Sky channel. So in this video we are going to be talking about the Prophet class for mages, something that a lot of people have been asking me to create. We're going to be touching over gears, relics, skills, pals, and pretty much all the other things in order to make yourself a very powerful Prophet. Now, if you like this guide, I hope you can share it with your friends, hit a like and comment below so that it reaches a larger audience and more people are able to benefit from it. Your support is going to be extremely appreciated. So a lot of the information in this guide came from this player called Blank. He is an expert mage, and when I was trying to ask people on who I should go to get some more information about mages, a friend of mine recommended Blank. And the amount of information he gave me with the level of detail he went into was amazing. So a big thank you to him, and I am pretty sure you're going to love this guide because it has so much information, and I'm going to try to present it to you in a way that's easy to understand. Make sure to subscribe to our channel, join our Discord, and also follow us on Instagram so you always have the support that you need to really enhance your account and get yourself to the next level. Also, if you stick around, I'm going to show you how you can save a lot of money when you make in-game purchases in the Legend of Mushroom by getting some amazing cashbacks each time you purchase anything. Let's of course start with the Prophet class. If you look at the active skill, it does a bunch of damage and then it reduces skill damage resistance of targets within the range by 20%, lasting for 8 seconds. It also breaks enemy shields instantly with attacks within 10 seconds. So when you look at this, and of course the active skill of your class is always very important because it sort of sets the tone for the rest of your build. Number one, skill damage res being reduced. That should give you a hint if you already didn't know. Prophets focus on skill damage, right? So reducing skill damage res means that your skills are able to do much more damage. The next thing it said is that it can break shields instantly with attacks. And that sort of suggests that the class that focuses on shields, the martial sages, are probably going to be a little weaker against prophets because all of the shields that they're getting is going to be broken instantly after you release the active skill. So that covers that. Let's see what's in the passive skills. Skill crit plus 15%. So the chance of doing skill crits goes up by 15%, again suggesting a lot of focus on skill crit. Next one, your attack increases by 12%, increasing your damage, and hence you're able to hit harder with those skills. Next one is active skill energy regeneration plus 20%, and what that really means is that it reduces the cooldown between the skills, making you able to launch skills more often. The next one, prolong active skills other than Blitz Assault by 40% and increase their damage by 10%. So a bunch of skills, they have like a certain time to it, like reduces the damage res for X seconds, right? This increases that duration by 40% and also increases the damage that the skills do when they get released. So helping the effect and helping the damage, both things are taken care of by this passive skill. And finally, every one stun reduces the cooldown of all active skills by 0.3 seconds. What that means is the more often you stun, the more often you are going to be able to release your skills because the cooldown reduces every time you stun the enemy. So by looking at all this, you can tell a few things. Number one, it is heavily focused on skills and skill crits, right? So doing a lot of damage using your skills, you get a boost in attack, you get a boost in skill crit percentage, you release skills more often, and if you can stun the enemy, you release skills even more often, your skills deal more damage, and their effects are prolonged as well. Finally, you also reduce skill damage res, and hence skills do more damage, and you get a little bit of a buff against those martial sages with their big shields. You can break them instantly after releasing your active skill. So now, the rest of the build is going to utilize some of these active and passive class skills to make sure you're able to create a very powerful Prophet. So we're going to start with the gear. So when it comes to gear, stun and skill crit tends to be something that a lot of prophets choose. And the reason is quite simple. Skill crit increases the chance of your skills critting and hence doing a lot more damage, which is something that you really want of yours. And there aren't too many places for you to get the skill crit percentage chance. So gear is a primary place where you're going to be getting a lot of it. And when it comes to stun, remember the class passive skill? Every time you stun, you're reducing the cooldown of all of your active skills. That means stun actually not only allows you to live longer because your enemy can't attack you and because they're stunned, it actually helps you release your skills more often, and you are heavily reliant on skills to do a lot of damage. So stun helps you in both ways, survivability and damage, hence a very good choice. So having stun and skill crit on all of your gear is probably something that would help you a lot. That being said, another choice that a lot of PvP focused mages do choose is skill crit and regeneration. Skill crit for the same reason, you want your skills to be doing a lot more damage and hence skill crit. Regeneration because you want to live longer, and regeneration gives you a little bit of health every few seconds, which allows you to live longer and release more skills. That's also a reasonably good choice, especially if you have a bunch of healing and health in your build. Going over the relics, firstly, the Demon's Mask. An obvious choice, skill crit rate plus 5%. And we already talked about how important skill crit rate is for you, so this is an obvious choice. Relic number 2, Thunder Caller Kite. Every time you deal an active skill, it deals a bunch of damage, a reasonably high amount of damage by the way, 1480% at level 100, increasing the damage that you do to the enemy every time you're releasing active skills. And since you're a prophet, you release active skills very often, and getting a 1480% extra damage each time you release a skill is definitely going to take you really far. When we talk about the third relic, this sort of does depend on which pals you end up choosing. The magic box is probably going to be one of the ones that you're going to be using because a lot of mages do like to have deers and cats in their build. We're going to talk about pals in a moment, by the way, but if you do end up using cats and deers, then perhaps the magic box is a good choice. The fourth one, you can choose between the Flame Book or the Stone Red Tomb. Now the Flame Book is if you want to go all into attack and do a lot more damage. This is going to take you really far. 10% increase in attack after 10 seconds. Very helpful. Stone Red Tomb if you want to go into survivability. It gives you damage rares of a bunch of different stuff like basic attack damage, counter, combo, skill, making you live a little bit longer. Both choices are good choices. You can choose whether you're struggling with survivability or if you are struggling with dealing damage. The fifth relic, of course, has to do with which skills you end up choosing. Now we're going to talk about skills soon, so you can choose which one works best based on the skills that you end up choosing. Like this one, which increases the duration of your star array by 50%, is probably a good choice. And finally, the necklace, same thing here. You're going to choose your skills after we talk about them, and then you can see which relic would be the good option here. This one is a reasonable choice. It increases energy regeneration speed of your Crimson Moonfall by 30%, and soon we're going to talk about Crimson Moonfall. It does do a ton of damage, and it actually releases very often. This allows you to release it even more often, making it a pretty nice choice. And talking about the spores, the potent spore is always a good choice because it actually increases all the other relic equip effects, and you're going to be choosing relics that are helpful for your build. Increasing their effects by up to 40% if you get to level 100 means that all the effects are basically 1.4 times the regular effects. Quite helpful for pretty much every class. Now if you're struggling with survivability, you could do the plumed spore, which gives you a damage resistance. At level 89, I'm getting 7.2%, so this is a good choice as well. That being said, if you go with the Stone Red Tomb, which gives you damage rares of a bunch of different stuff anyway, and then you go with the Potent Spore, which increases the damage res to 1.4x, you're sort of getting the damage res as well as a bunch of other benefits, so maybe the Potent Spore might be a better choice. So I'd probably stick with this one. And since I still have you here, I want you to know that you can save a lot of money in the Legend of Mushroom and take your account to the next level. The steps are very simple. Just follow the video that I'm linking to the description of this video, or you can click that button that's going to appear at the top part of the screen that'll take you to that video. We're talking 10 to 35% cash back each time you make a purchase in the game. Imagine how far that can take you, or basically save you a lot of money in the long run. If you have any questions, join our Discord and I can guide you through the process personally. A lot of big spenders are taking advantage of this and they are ever grateful, and I hope you join in as well, because not only are you going to save a lot of money, you'll actually be helping our channel as well. Okay, let's move over to the skills, since we were already talking about that in the relics. Firstly, the star array. It deals a bunch of damage and then increases skill crit rate by 10%. Now remember, skill crit rate is very important because you want your skills to crit and do a lot more damage. This is giving you 10%, which is quite helpful. And for every 1% skill crit rate, you get an extra 3% skill crit damage for 5 seconds, right? So that includes the skill crit rate you're getting from your gear. It includes the skill crit rate you're getting from your relic. So you're getting a huge boost in your skill crit damage as well, making this a very helpful skill by giving you a lot more damage output. Next up, Dragonic Resonance. And it does a bunch of damage, and then it also does more damage based on the maximum HP of the target, right? So if you're dealing with, let's say, some martial sages that have a ton of HP, this skill is going to help you deal much more damage. Additionally, it also deals an extra 1% damage of the target's maximum HP for every 10% damage resistance, again targeting those bulky martial sages that have a lot of HP and a lot of damage res. So a good counter if that's the sort of targets that you're facing a lot. Next up, 100 Slashes. So it does a bunch of damage and then you gain 20% basic attack damage res. Let's say you're fighting an archer that's doing a lot of basic attack on you, helps you live a little bit longer. But the best part is that it gives you an extra attack bonus based on your current HP for 5 seconds, and the range is between 10 to 40% extra attack. That's a pretty nice increase in attack, right? And you are all about dealing a lot of damage, and increasing your attack means you can deal a lot more of that damage. So a good choice as well. Crimson Moonfall, we were talking about this in the relics. Crimson Moonfall actually does a bunch of damage, but the biggest part is that you can release it extremely often. 8 seconds cooldown, and that cooldown is going to get reduced because of your class passive skills. We were also talking about how the relics can enhance the abilities even further. And the thing is, this skill gets stronger every time it gets released. And it gets released so often that it's going to reach its maximum power very quickly. And when we're talking about mages that do a ton of damage through skills, it just makes sense for you to have Crimson Moonfall because it deals a lot of damage and it does it very often. Clone Strike is more of a meat shield, allowing you to live a little bit longer. That being said, it doesn't really save you from area effect damage, especially when you're talking about PvP. You go against enemies who use Blitz Assault, so they're immune to damage, and probably you are immune to it as well because you might have it too. And by the time Blitz Assault goes away, your clone is already gone as well. So initially, Clone Strike was a very powerful skill. Now it's starting to become not that helpful. The other thing is it doesn't protect you from counter damage either, right? Because it is a clone, it's not really a shield. Next up, Blitz Assault. We were just talking about this. It deals a bunch of damage and then it gives you 3 seconds of damage immunity, allowing you to survive against other powerful mages who might be releasing all of their skills on you. And if you release your Blitz Assault first, you get to survive those skills, which is of course very helpful. Blade Pierce deals a bunch of damage and then it does damage based on the target's maximum HP. Good against those high health targets that we were talking about, but of course there's a fairly large cooldown, so you need to consider whether it is a good option to use given that we're talking about the benefits of so many other skills. That being said, if you do choose it, there is a relic that actually allows you to heal yourself a little bit as well whenever you release the Blade Pierce. Next up, Wild Gust deals a bunch of damage and increases your attack, allowing you to do more damage using your skills of course, and also gives you a little bit of healing if you use the associated relic that we were just talking about. Next, Disarm, Dazzled, and Smoke Bomb. Disarm Disarm makes the target unable to actually attack you, allowing you to live a little bit longer. Dazzled stuns the enemy as well while dealing some damage. And finally, Smoke Bomb, which actually reduces the enemy's damage res by 20%. So therefore, you can deal more damage to them as well. Okay, going to the orange skills, Meteor Fall is also fairly helpful. It increases your final skill damage by 20%, lasting for 5 seconds. And if you use this associated relic, you actually increase the effect by 30% more. So that means a ton of skill damage. That can be quite helpful for you as well. Easy Breezy and Take It Slow can actually help you live a little bit longer. Easy Breezy reduces the enemy's attack, and Take It Slow reduces their attack speed, both of them enabling you to live a little bit longer by reducing the abilities of your enemies to do damage to you. Moving on to the yellow skills, Batty Trace is actually fairly helpful as well. What it does is that it summons a bat that deals a bunch of damage every second, and its cooldown isn't that bad, so you can release it quite often, and the damage that it does is fairly significant. It's also quite easy to max out because it is a yellow skill. So if you are low level and you don't have high level skills on other rarities, Batty Trace can still help you do a lot of damage. So overall, there's a bunch of different choices that you can use for your mage. If you want to go full damage dealer, then you want to choose some skills that reduce the enemy's damage resistance and also skills that increase your damage output. But you can also decide to mix in some of those survivability skills to allow you to live a little bit longer and release your next set of skills. Next up, let's go to pals, and of course a very good choice is the Treasure Dragon. Increases skill crit rate by 20%. That's something that you want, so definitely a very good choice for you. The Alpine Fox, another amazing choice. It increases the stun duration by 30% and reduces stunned enemies' damage res by 15%. So they remain stunned for longer and you can deal more damage to them while they're stunned. Hipster Tortoise in the pink pals is fairly helpful as well. There is a shield that it gives you equal to 30% of your maximum HP when your HP goes below 50%. Now I did hear that there is a little bit of a delay between that shield that comes out and when your HP goes below 50%. So if the enemy is doing a lot of damage really fast, you might not even get that shield. So there is a little bit of a problem that you might have facing certain enemies that do a lot of damage to you really fast. Moving to red pals, the Alpaca Bell is quite interesting as well. It reduces enemies' attack, allowing you to live a little bit longer. The puppy is also good for enhancing your shield effects. If you choose a build where you're getting shields, like either let's say Hipster Tortoise or maybe from artifacts and mounts or something, depending on what you choose. If you're using a bunch of shields, this can be quite helpful. The Night Sprite Fox, increasing your skill crit rate and skill crit damage, both things that are very helpful for you. Angel Deer, increasing your damage res, allowing you to live longer. Tipsy Snail, reducing enemy movement speed, which can be helpful in PvE or PvP if you decide to go with the Frostland Spectre back accessory. The Hero Bird, which increases your attack speed, and this is fairly helpful as well because it allows you to use your skills potentially before the enemy can use Blitz Assault because you have more speed than them, and if you do, you can actually probably try to one-shot them before they use their Blitz Assault, or at least get a bunch of damage in. So a decent choice in your pals. Fiery Tail, another choice if you want to go the damage dealing route. Skill damage plus 60%, also helpful. Snow General, reducing enemy attack speed by 15% if you're struggling with a lot of archer enemies. Reducing their attack speed is always helpful. Warlord Hydra Sprite, this is a must have, right? We're talking about a few good to haves just right now, but this one is a must have. Active skill energy regeneration plus 25%, meaning you can release your skills more often, and you already know how important that is for you. And currently it's the only pal that can actually give you active skill energy regeneration. So definitely choose this as one of those pals that you're going to choose. It's a must have, just like the Treasure Dragon and perhaps the Alpine Fox if you are going with the stun skill crit route. The Cat Prince, another amazing choice for damage dealers. It actually adds 300% damage every time you do active skills, and you're going to do a lot of active skills, so very good choice to use and a very popular choice amongst many mages. Devi is a good choice as well, giving you skill crit rate and 8% final crit damage for 15 seconds after the battle starts. The only problem, of course, is that it only lasts for 15 seconds, but overall you can see that the effect is quite nice. And finally, Abaddon is nice as well. 10 seconds shield equal to 8% of your maximum HP, and then increases your attack by 8% for 10 seconds after the shield is lost. Another good one for a quick fire battle. So just like skills, you have a bunch of choices when it comes to pals, and you can decide if you want to go like quick fire damage dealer route, or if you want to go the survivability and live longer route, which is also a choice that you can make and still be quite effective. Going over to the class awakenings. Again, like most of the things that we've talked about, there's choices for you to make, and you can decide if you want to go the offensive route or more of the survivability route. So of course, if you want to go the more offensive route and more damage dealer, you're going to be going with a higher focus on your attack seal and your skill damage seal and build these two up a lot more than the others. However, if you want to focus a little bit more on survivability as well, you're going to be going the HP and crit resistance seals as well. So based on your priority on whether you're trying to get more damage in or if you're trying to go more survivability in, you're going to choose to focus on the attack, skill damage, or HP and crit res. Get the perfect balance of your survivability and offensive abilities. Now they did add the skill crit damage seal, but based on what I've heard, the amount of skill crit damage you get every level is fairly low. As you can see, it's 0.5 per level. So investing too heavily into the seal isn't that amazing as it looks. Moving over to the fruit bonuses. So a good choice for you to go would be all global attack, because mages are heavily focused on doing a lot of damage, so full global attack fruit bonuses is a very popular choice. It can boost your damage really high, allowing you to do a lot of damage through your skills. You also have the option to pull in a few global healths if you want a mix between your damage dealing abilities and survivability. However, totally depends on your playstyle. If you want to go full attack, go all attack. But if you think that you're not surviving long enough to do those skills and get to the second round, pull in some global health into the mix as well. So 3 HP and 2 attack would be a balanced build. A pure attack build would probably go with all attack. A pure defensive build would probably go with all HP. Talking about the mounts, the Cloud Drifter is a very popular choice amongst a lot of mages, and the reason is because you do get a pretty nice boost in your skill crit rate, a 10% boost, and then after you do a skill crit you get a 20% increase in your attack. That is, of course, significant, and therefore, even though this mount was out a long time ago, it is still a popular choice amongst a lot of mages. And not to mention, it is free, so you can get this from the rush shop, and you can get a lot of copies of them as well, increasing its abilities even further. It just makes it even sweeter that its passive effect was giving you 10% global attack, so again, aligned with what you're trying to get. The Magic Carpet is another good choice, and it can also be gotten for free from the Lucky Spinner event. That being said, it is a little bit of RNG. You don't really know which skill is going to be triggered, but of course it can always be helpful, and it might trigger a skill that you really need at that particular time. Cheetah Zero is also a good choice. It gives you that death immunity for 3 seconds when taking lethal damage, which as you can imagine is quite helpful, and of course it does a bunch of damage before you really go down. The Nebular Shuttle is another good choice as well if you're going with a more defensive build, as it gives you shields and a damage res bonus. The Blizzard Visitor is only helpful if it's combined with the Frostland Spectre back accessory and the Snail Pal, as then the 3 of these synergize really well and give a lot of debuffs to the enemy. But if you're not using the Snail or using that back accessory, then perhaps this is not a good choice for you either. Moving over to the artifacts, and well, when it comes to free artifacts, the only one that you really have is the Chaotic Warlord's Hammer. It's not really built for mages, but if this is the only option you have, you might as well unlock it and use it, as it still gives you a little bit of benefit. When it comes to pay-to-win options, there's a bunch that you can use. For example, the tier attack is actually pretty popular with a lot of mages as well. Apparently for defensive abilities, right, every few seconds you get a character with 20% of your maximum HP. So the archers are now trying to kill that character, allowing you to live a little bit longer. The Eternal Flame is also fairly good. It gives you a little bit of buffs that you can use. And then this 1000-fold artifact is also helpful because it does damage equal to 6% of their maximum HP and also debuffs the enemies a little bit. The two most recent artifacts that came out are probably good for offensive builds, as this one gives you an attack bonus of 10% when the battle starts, which is of course helpful, and it also reduces the enemy's defense as well as their damage res. As you can imagine, an amazing choice for offensive mages because you get to do more damage to the enemy. And then the Staff of Hermes reducing their damage res and debuffing them as well, which is also quite helpful. Going over to the runes, of course you want to try to get skill crit damage in a bunch of your runes as well as crit res, because those two are pretty important for mages. Of course, if you decide to go with a more defensive build, then perhaps getting a few damage res would be helpful as well. For rune number 4, you definitely want to have skill damage as the primary stat. That is, of course, a must-have. And for rune 6, you want to try to have crit res as your primary stat. That's good for your survivability. Going over to your souls. Now this of course goes down to the fact that if you want to be a damage dealer or a more defensive mage, if you're going with damage dealers, of course you want to have a lot of global attack as your top priority, as well as skill damage and skill crit damage, right? So these three will be your top priorities. You try to max them out as much as possible. But if you're going a little bit more on the defensive approach, you also want to make sure that you get some global HP to allow you to live longer. And of course, crit res. So you can choose to balance between the two and decide which one you're currently lacking and then prioritize that one more. If you're already pretty good at offense but you don't live long enough, perhaps focus a little bit on your defensive abilities. Alternatively, if you are able to survive pretty long but you're not able to do much damage, go for the offensive abilities. We talk about the back accessories. The Shell Shade is a popular choice amongst a lot of mages, and it's because it gives you a shield equal to 10% of your maximum HP every 11 seconds, hence giving you survivability, but it also increases your energy regeneration by 50% for the shield's duration and final skill damage of 10% once the shield is lost, which lasts until the end of battle and stacks up to 2 times. So definitely built for your class. Probably the best back accessory out there. So if you do have it, this is the one that you should be using, right? Survivability, allowing you to release your skills more often, and then dealing more damage through your skills. Everything that you really need. The Summer Parasol is also a good choice. It switches between defensive abilities and offensive abilities, so it's good for both survivability and doing damage. Alien Dimension is also fairly good because it does reduce the final damage that you take in and also gives you some energy regeneration speed. So if you have this and you don't have the fan, you probably want to use this. Finally, the Frostland Spectre. If you combine it with the Snail and the Blizzard Visitor, then this can give a bunch of debuffs to the enemy, which can be quite helpful, particularly against archers. When it comes to back accessory talents, the final notes that are worth mentioning, number 1 is Ascension. It gives you an extra 20% attack after 45 seconds. So let's say you're stuck in a long battle. Well, this 20% is probably going to help you quite a lot. Temporal Compression in the Sorcery tab. Every skill cast increases attack by 2% up to 30%. And since you release skills so often, you're probably going to get 30% really fast. Again, an increase in attack, which is quite helpful for you. And then Endless Outburst. When the HP drops below 20% for the first time, skill cooldown is accelerated by 100% for 5 seconds. Other than these three, of course, you want to try to get crit res wherever you can. That's very important for your class. Active skill energy regeneration speed so that you can release skills more often. Get the attack, of course, that's very helpful as well. And then there is skill crit damage as well as your skill damage if you're more inclined to the offensive stats. Otherwise, if you want to go defensive, each of the north trees have a lot of damage res that you can use to allow yourself to live longer. Of course, if you decided to go with the Prophet that goes with stun and skill crit, you probably want to get this as well. 15% extra chance to stun the enemies, therefore releasing skills more often and of course allowing yourself to live longer because the enemy is going to be stunned more often. Talking about avians, Magic Cat is a nice option. It deals a bunch of damage, but it also helps reduce the cooldown of some of your active skills, which is of course good for your class. Dense Cloud is another good option because again it also increases your energy regeneration by 25%, hence allowing you to release skills more often. The Pumpkin Witch, another very popular choice with mages, is also great because it does extra damage every time you do skill crits, and you're going to be doing a lot of skill crits. Now when it comes to the passive affixes, you definitely want to try and get the no speeding affix, which reduces enemy active skill durations by 8%. A very good choice, and of course you do need to breed the Astronaut B-Duck with one of your Avians if you want to try to get this one, as I believe it's only available on Astronaut B-Duck as a base. Wind Tear is another great option. Your active skills deal damage equal to 1% of your target's current HP, a little bit of extra damage every time you release skills, and you'll be releasing skills very often. Infinite Dream, another good option. Whenever you do a skill crit, the active skill deals 6% more damage for 8 seconds. So more skill damage after you do skill crits, and you'll be doing a lot of skill crits, so a good amount of skill damage will be added due to this affix. Barrel Dodge is another good one, giving you crit res bonus, which is of course important for your class. And finally Rage Slash, which boosts your attack every second when you have more than 50% of your HP, stacking up to 30 times. Again, helpful as it allows you to do more damage to the enemy. Talent Skill for more skill damage, of course. And then Regen Ability if you're going with more survivability, giving you some HP regen bonus. Others worth mentioning are of course the ones that give you skill crit damage, which are basically the purple ones like Multi-Talented, Inert Gas, etc. For Star Rays, this is an option you can choose. The main one gives you a shield and also reduces the enemy's attack, allowing you to live a little bit longer, while the other two supports are giving you an extra attack as well as increase in your base skill damage, so a mix of both survivability and offensive abilities. Another option for you would be if you have this star array, you could use it as your main. So basically what it does is that it deals some damage to them and also stuns them for 1.5 seconds. Then you can combine it with this helper, essentially giving you his shield to allow you to live a little bit longer. And this one, essentially reducing the enemy's damage resistance by 5 seconds so you do more damage to them. A third set of options that you can use is have this as the main one, basically the Genie of Wishes, giving you an extra attack and defense that lasts until the end of battle. And then as supports, you can have this one, increasing your skill crit rate and skill crit damage, and the Sprite of Knowledge, increasing your stun rate until the battle ends. So these three can be good options for you to use in the star array. Finally, when it comes to the tech park, you could probably go with a higher focus on attack if you're going with a more offensive build, or you can mix up attack and HP for a more balanced approach. You could also, of course, prioritize everything evenly, giving yourself a bunch of attack, HP, and defense. Do note that you cannot change the tech park bonuses around like you can with a bunch of other things that we've talked about. So if you are going a specific route, or if you decide to go a more balanced one, you cannot switch to a pure attack later on. So do decide how you want to play before you decide to mess with the tech park, because you cannot change it in the future. And that's pretty much everything I have for you. I really hope this was helpful for you. If it was, please like the video, comment below so that other people can benefit from it as well, and do share it with your friends so that I can continue to make more and more guides on the Legend of Mushroom content. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.